Good afternoon, everyone. If you're in the center, please put on your headphones so we can listen to our speakers later on. Good afternoon and welcome to the U.S. Center at COP29. Also, welcome to our Green Shipping Challenge side event, From Commitments to Action. Please welcome with me, please welcome Georg Borstein, Policy Director and Ocean Envoy for the Norwegian Foreign Ministry, who will provide some opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ro, and hi, everyone. So let me start by saying that green shipping is growing. The global momentum to decarbonize shipping has become stronger. And I think that the list of positive development was indeed much shorter at the time that Special Presidential Envoy John Kerry and Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre launched the Green Shipping Challenge at COP27. Clearly, their initiative was timely and it also was needed. And I would like to thank, at this occasion, the US for their leadership, the US team with Ro and everyone else for their immense work and leadership, not particularly on the challenge initiative. The need for shipping to urgently scale up climate actions was urgent then, and it is no less urgent today. Decarbonizing shipping is essential for keeping the 1.5 degree goal within reach through actions in this critical decade. Moreover, decarbonizing shipping will play a driving role in the energy transition agreed at COP28 in Dubai by creating demands for zero-emission fuels earlier than previously predicted. So, what is achieved since the Green Shipping Challenge was launched 2 years ago? Beyond a large number of important commitments and follow-up under the challenge, we have the International Maritime Organization, which reached a milestone agreement in July last year when the ambitious IMO climate strategy was adopted. This agreement, which includes the ambition to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by around 2050, means that now is the time to scale up the deployment of zero emission shipping. Norway, on our part, we will do our utmost to ensure that the IMO will adopt the needed legally binding framework in October next year, which will require emission reductions in line with the ambitions in that strategy. And failure is no alternative, and all the early actions for emission cuts in shipping at domestic level all around is increasing as we see it year by year. Some examples from Norway this year only is our decision to require that new domestic ferry contracts shall be zero emissions by 1st of January 2025, and to phase in zero emission operations from cruise vessels in our World Heritage Fjord starting in 2026 for small vessels, and setting 2032 as a final deadline for all. Also, our financial support to zero-emission ships has been record high, with a special focus on the introduction of green ammonia and hydrogen in shipping. The growing number of green shipping corridor projects, also projects that Norway takes part in, is very promising. And these initiatives will play an important part in enabling the early phase of the transition to zero-emission shipping. So, what is now the dominating challenge? Well, in short, we see too few investment decisions, too few ships running on their low or zero-emission solutions in their daily operation, and the conditions for a well-functioning market for green shipping still needs to be created. So, let's take the Green Shipping Challenge forward and do it in the IMO, do it in domestic policies, do it in the industry. And I look forward to hearing more about progress and further plans from the panel today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thank you, Georg. Very inspiring and realistic perspectives of the Green Shipping Challenge. I'm going to now provide a very brief description of the event, of the panel, and then I'll invite the speakers to please take their seats in front on the stage. As you all may be well aware, the United States and Norway launched the Green Shipping Challenge in 2022 during a high-level event at COP27. The challenge encourages countries, ports, companies, and other major actors in the shipping value chain to come forward with concrete announcements that will help put the shipping sector on a path this decade that is aligned with the goal of limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Since then, the Green Shipping Challenge has inspired over 80 announcements across all facets of the international shipping sector. We've seen commitments for action at port, at sea, and major policies. For this year's event, we decided to get a little bit under the microscope and invite a few key Green Shipping Challenge participants to present on the progress they've made on their commitments and reflect on the future of the Green Shipping Challenge. Emissions from the shipping sector are rising and still on a trajectory that is not consistent with the Paris Agreement. You have probably heard us say this way too many times, but if shipping were a country, it would be one of the top 10 largest emitters. This means that even though we have done a lot of good work so far in the past few years, there's still a need to keep the momentum going well into 2025 and accelerate decarbonization efforts of the maritime sector. Now, I invite our speakers to provide us a bit more detailed look at their progress. Please welcome Andreas Egger, Chief Executive Officer of Höegh Autoliners, Meg Gentle, Executive Director for HIF Global, Sarah Edmondson, Head of Global Advocacy for Fortescue, and Dr. Shumbin Kim, Senior Researcher for the Korean Register. The panel will be organized as follows. Each panelist will provide a high-level intervention or comment on the progress made on their Green Shipping Challenge announcement. And then after each panelist has had an opportunity to present, I will moderate a short discussion based on guiding questions shared beforehand. If there's time, we'll open up for questions from the public. So let's begin. Mr. Engers, please.
Yes, and I'm going to start with a short video demonstrating our progress with our first sort of new class vessel being delivered in August this year, her sister vessel being delivered in September with Jonas Gahr Støre, Norwegian Prime Minister, present at the naming ceremony. And just run the video that is just showing a short picture of where we are. Today, shipping stands for 3% of global carbon emissions. Deep sea shipping makes up almost 90% of that. This cannot continue. That's why we are now changing the game. This is Höegh Aurora, the first of 12 Aurora-class vessels. She will be the largest and most environmentally friendly car carrier ever built and is a monumental step on our journey towards our net zero goal in 2040. Höegh Autoliners have always innovated. That's who we are. And this is probably our biggest innovation ever. One that will change the industry. I'm boarding Höegh Aurora less than 4 years after the first ID of the Aurora class was launched. It's setting a new standard. It's the first vessel in its segment that will be ready to run on clean ammonia. The world is requiring climate action. With the Aurora class, we are delivering. We're also delivering exceptional cargo capacity, 9,100 cars, and all decks and ramps strengthened to be able to carry EVs on all decks. We are leading the way towards net zero, raising the bar on sustainable deep sea transportation. And we're doing this together with best-in-class partners and the Norwegian maritime cluster. Sustainable shipping is possible, not in 15, 20 years, but right now. We are proud to be making the impossible possible. And I just want to add that after this video is made, we've also made agreements with MAN, Hyundai Heavy and our shipyard to get the last 4 vessels in this series delivered as dual-fuel ammonia vessels in 2027. And I think the important message here is that everybody has talked for so long about how difficult this is. This is not difficult. These vessels are there, they're going, they're ammonia classed. We have the path to ammonia there. It's not a technical problem, it's not an engineering problem. Lots of things we have to do, and we work with great partners to do that. We work with Yara on ammonia safety, we work with suppliers of the fuel, we work with MAN on the engines, but you know, that's going to be done. It's under control. There are really 2 things that are missing to scale this. One is that there is a price difference between carbon emitting and zero carbon fuels that is an effective block to zero carbon shipping. We are ready to be leaders in driving towards clean shipping. We are not ready to underwrite global regulatory risk, so all these vessels are built in dual fuel mode. They're going to have their ammonia tanks filled with clean ammonia in 2027, but they're not going to be run on clean ammonia unless our customers, the cargo owners, choose to use it, which will only happen if there is a carbon pricing mechanism that is properly used to lower the price difference. That's essential. The next part is scaling the fuel. I think those 2 are closely correlated, and we have great partnerships in the ammonia supply chain where we believe that will also come. But regulations is essential. And I think, in the interest of time, I think my key message is it's really as simple as that. We have built the vessels ammonia ready. We have engineered and ordered with all the relevant partners the ammonia version of these vessels. They're going to be dual fuel, and they're going to start running zero carbon fuels as soon as regulation is in place. And with regulations, we are confident that the fuel will come as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Engers, and I think I get the message. The roadmap is there. Now have to deliver. And speaking about one of those issues that you mentioned about fuel availability and scaling up the supply, we move now to Meg Gentle from HIF Global to speak a little bit about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ro. I'm going to talk a little bit about HIF Global. We produce e-fuels today in southern Chile, and we started production in late 2022. And as of the commitments on the Green Shipping Challenge, we took all of our experience from producing e-methanol and e-gasoline in southern Chile and made a commitment to be able to deliver that to the maritime market with a greater than 80% reduction in CO2 emissions. And so since that time, we've completed engineering on a 1.4 million ton facility to be built at full commercial scale in Texas. And we've also initiated engineering on other facilities in Chile for expansion, Uruguay, and Australia. We did confirm that the LCA analysis results in less than 5 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule. And we lengthened our own value chain to be able to start developing the market in Japan and Singapore with partnerships with Idemitsu, MOL, and JOGMEC. And then most recently, last month, we started supply of the first amount of e-fuels into the shipping sector with sail to Antarctica 21 to start decarbonizing the tourism trade routes from southern Patagonia into Antarctica. So huge success, progress, bringing fuels into the maritime sector, and I would echo that the last piece is going to be regulatory certainty so that we can start construction on those commercial scale production facilities.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, we can hear from your presentation that the production of these new fuels is not just in one area of the world. You're working in multiple spots, which is what we expect, as this will become also an economic opportunity to all countries as we transition. Moving on to a little bit fuels, but also action at sea with the work on your Green Pioneer, the first clean ammonia-powered vessel to operate. I'll pass it over to Sarah Edmondson from Fortescue.
And can I just say how exciting this is that we've got ships happening now, fuels happening now. So really exciting to see that this shipping challenge has actually translated into concrete action in a very short space of time. I'll just maybe give 2 sentences about Fortescue because you might need to have a little bit of a broader understanding on where we're coming from. So Fortescue is actually a mining company. And we are one of the largest iron ore producers in the world. Relatively young company, only 20 years old. In the mining space, they tend to be kind of 80 to 100 years old. Relatively new, but that's actually part of our real strategic advantage is we have a very visionary leader, which is our chairman. Now, as a mining company, we have, enormous haul trucks, 400-ton haul trucks. We've got the heaviest haul rail in the world. Our locomotives and our trains are 3 kilometers long. So if you're about to cross the road and the rail comes through, you're going to be there for several minutes as it passes by. But we also have, we're a ship owner. We have the very large ore carriers, the VLOCs, and then we charter about 1,000 ships per year. So at any point in time, we have about 100 ships on the water. So for Fortescue, again, with this mining background, about 5 years ago decided that our carbon footprint was a real issue, and we started making some very serious carbon reduction commitments and effectively a decarbonization strategy. And so we didn't limit that to our terrestrial operations. We actually extended that to shipping. But we realized and we felt and I'm sure Andreas has had the similar experience, you need a very hands-on approach to make sure that the engineers and all of the technology providers are starting to meet our more ambitious timeline. And so what we did, we created a marine team in March of 2001, so that was about 3.5 years ago. And that marine team was tasked with a very specific mission, and that was to enable green ammonia, specifically because it needed to be zero carbon and it needed to be scalable, to enable the green ammonia as a marine fuel business and to effectively decarbonize our own fleet. So that journey started about 3.5 years ago. It started on a test bench in Perth, and then about a little over a year ago moved to the sea. We bought a 75-meter demonstrator vessel. Now that was actually when the shipping challenge was launched. Many of you might have actually been on the Green Pioneer at Dubai. So effectively, this demonstration vessel and this story, this journey did start several years ago, but what's happened in the last year has been extraordinary because we realized that while we were ready to go net zero or to go real zero, the enabling environment wasn't there. So what we did is we partnered with the Singaporean Maritime Port Authority, who have been phenomenal and have dedicated an enormous amount of human resources in order to work with us very closely to take the Green Pioneer, that 75-meter demonstration vessel, to effectively be capable from a regulatory standpoint to maneuver and to effectively run on green ammonia in its shipping exercises. And so we started working with DNV and with the MPA, And through that collaboration, along with academia and other research institutions and whatnot, we reached a very pivotal moment in March of this year when we actually received our flagship ship registration with Singapore, as well as our DNV class notification on using ammonia as a marine fuel. We have produced over 300 safety documents out of this exercise, both safety as well as environmental protection, and we were able to present at the IMO, at the Marine Safety Committee, twice this year to be able to share those key findings. We've also been working with Yara and several other companies actually in making sure that those key findings on safety and environment are effectively distributed within the industry. So it's been a very exciting last 12 months, and we feel like this is part of effectively what Andreas and Meg were kind of mentioning. We need that regulatory environment, and part of that, of course, means having the legal rights to be able to actually sail those ships and use ammonia as a marine fuel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And yes, I mean, I missed it in Dubai, but I got to see it in Singapore. And it's just impressive, the amount of information and safety requirements that you guys have worked through, and that's essential for us to transition to these new fuels, because there's new concerns, new safety issues that could occur that we're not ready for yet. We really appreciate your work to help us get there faster.
Maybe worth mentioning as well that the IMO Secretary General has often said that seafarer safety and crew safety is probably one of his biggest concerns.
Yeah.
Obviously super committed to moving to a decarbonized pathway, but this is obviously a key issue.
Great, thank you. And now, moving on to our fourth and last but not least speaker, Dr. Sungim Kim from Korea, from the Korean Register, who will speak about one of those policy initiatives that really has sparked since the Green Shipping Challenge, the launch of green shipping corridors, and in particular, the green shipping corridor between the U.S. and the Republic of Korea. Please.
Hi. The Republic of Korea and the U.S. are jointly working on to building green shipping corridor with the goal of realizing the two shipping routes in 7 years. Korean Register and then Moscow Mullen McKinsey Center are working on the methanol fuel container ship between the port Busan and Tacoma. Moscow Mullen McKinsey Center is an PCTC carrier, the car carrier between the ports of Ulsan and Tacoma, respectively. Also, methanol fueled PCTC carrier. Let me explain the current situation for the green shipping corridor between the Republic of Korea and United States. An economic analysis model has been completed, and we examine different economic outcomes based on detailed information and scenarios among the stakeholders involved in the project. Mutual trust to cooperation based on the trust. Trust is the most important premise in the fact. What is important here is that the green shipping corridor in the Republic of Korea and United States are pursuing net zero. This is something that will need to be discussed in the future, but our project is aiming for net zero carbon, and we are targeting very long shipping routes. This means that the portion of the loss rather than gains is too large for economic analysis, so that what we are going to focus on our future roadmap. Once again, the green shipping corridor promoted by the Republic of Korea and the United States are about building sustainable, pure net zero shipping routes for the long distance shipping. This is very challenging and significant undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. Now, since we moved on, everybody has been able to provide a little bit of an overview. We'd like to move on to the moderated discussion. We have some guiding questions that we share with you ahead of time. So I'll start actually, again, from the corner over there, Mr. Anger. So in addition, as we've seen, your investments on these new vessels, are you working with other actors? I think you mentioned a little bit about it, but are you working with other actors in the shipping value chain to ensure that sustainable and scalable use of ammonia or other low and zero emission fuels across your fleet is possible?
I mean, yes, because we as a company do not have the expertise and the resources to actually make the propulsion line, right? So I mean, there are a number of players in there, and in many ways it started with MAN, which is our engine supplier, has been for a long time, and I think they will feel that we have been pushing them quite hard to get to a commitment on delivering engines, and we got there. They worked on the technology, and I think we would also acknowledge that they've been extremely helpful in accelerating that, because we couldn't have done it without them. You need the engines, right? And we've also, given that we are from Norway, and we are working. We have been working very close with the Yara at the time they have their headquarters across the road from us, and we have one of their sustainability executives on our board. So we're working very, very closely with them on the safety side, because they have 100-year experience handling ammonia, also on ships. They're basically shipping ammonia globally. So in terms of adding that safety. And then I mean, to add to that we have signed and announced an agreement with Fortescue yesterday, and we work closely with Fortescue, and that includes working jointly to accelerate ammonia as a fuel, but obviously also we also been going visiting the MPA in Singapore together with them, and the things around the whole ability to add practical safety training around actually having the Green Pioneer. So there are many dimensions on that, because we actually also had the benefit of we run a career crew model, meaning that we have a very active crew training program that we drive. So it's a lots of parties involved here, and I think I could have mentioned many more. Yeah. Maybe the most important I haven't mentioned is that we obviously also have a close dialogue with our customers, the cargo owners, because they are an essential piece of the puzzle, and it's also a missing piece in a way, but they're also one of those that are eager to go but waiting for the regulation.
Excellent, thank you. And we always love to hear when Green Shipping Challenge participants work together to even raise their own ambition. And I'm happy you mentioned cargo owners, because SEMBA is an initiative that also is part of the challenge, and they have already provided like the first contract for zero emission cargo transportation agreement. So that's amazing news. And then unfortunately they were not able to be here in Baku to provide a more detailed announcement on that. I'm going to move on to Meg for your follow-up question then. As HIF or HIF, I always forget how to pronounce it, advances in sustainable fuel production, what are the main challenges you face in scaling this production to meet the global demand, and how is HIF working with partners and regulators to accelerate the adoption of sustainable fuels across various hard-to-abate sectors? Because, yeah, shipping is one, but this will also be a transition of all other transportation sectors.
I would say that, well, first of all, the challenges that we see and we face are also opportunities, and these challenges are getting solved. We are employing existing technology, so when we think of scale up, the challenges to scale up are not coming from the technology side. The challenge that we have to get to the full 1.4 million tons construction in Texas is actually on the demand side. So the formation of the market to be able to sign long-term contracts to support the construction of these multi-billion-dollar facilities is really waiting on the finalization of the pieces of regulatory policy that are needed to form that stable support and message to the demand side of the market that lowering the carbon emissions of the shipping sector is going to be required year after year. And so when I say these challenges are becoming opportunities, finally, after working on e-fuels since 2017, some of the regulation is coming to fruition. So the member states of the European Union are putting into place RED 3. The Fuel EU Maritime is becoming effective. We're harassing Roe all the time and thank him for his support in front of the IMO. And we're now, coming into the April meeting where a real progress is going to be made to show that the carbon emission reductions have to happen. So we're really at the precipice of being able to have the long-term contracts that underpin these very large-scale facilities. And that's when we'll see that scaling can actually happen and that the challenge is not on the technology side. And as we get to scale, we will also see a precipitous drop in the cost of producing these fuels. And we can already see today that we can produce green methanol for less than $1,000 a ton.
And that's excellent news, and the message is well received about regulatory signals. Sarah, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. It sounds like a lot of bold steps into a world of discomfort and change, but with some fantastic results. So as you're working with these ammonia powered vessel, what safety protocols or technologies have you been implementing? You said you created over 300 plus documents, of course, with the Singaporean maritime.
Can you draw us a picture of how challenging has it been to manage ammonia fuel as a fuel, and your work with the regulatory bodies?
Yeah, well, I think it's been extremely challenging. In fact, we like to say it's been very difficult, but it is possible. But maybe just a few comments to kind of give a little background to that. So, of course, safety protocols have always been at the heart of what we're doing, right? So whether it's the emergency response or the safety systems or even just PPE, obviously that's been, the crew safety has been really one of the key focuses. In fact, actually, as we've developed our emergency response and crew safety, it's actually been primarily through a feedback system with the crew to be able to have their direct feedback, actually, to understand what can be done better and what can change. So maybe just a little bit to be a little bit more specific. So in terms of leading on the ammonia skills and development in ammonia for crews, we've trained more than 80 seafarers in basic and advanced courses, supplemented with our own ammonia safety course. We've developed the ammonia-fueled shipboard operational course in conjunction with the Singapore Maritime Academy. And we've hosted training field trips on board with the Green Pioneer for pilots, environmental agencies, and other broader stakeholders in the industry. In fact, we were very present at the Singapore Maritime Week. We will be present again in March of 2025. And we're also the only energy player. Fortescue is a mining company, but we've also got an energy business, and we're the only energy player in the Singapore Maritime Training Facility. So all of that, let's say, kind of in-person work that we're doing specifically with these academic and research institutions is what has allowed us to produce this documentation. And maybe something that's actually really, really exciting that I forgot to mention earlier is that with those two presentations to the IMO, as well as a lot of other work that was done by the MPA, the interim guidelines for ammonia as a marine fuel are going to be approved on the 4th of December. Extremely exciting. This is something that could have happened years from now, but it was the extraordinary work of not just Fortescue, so many other players to allow that. And that is the key enabler, again, for us to be able to start using green ammonia. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'm pretty sure that your work actually accelerated that to be able to be approved so quickly.
We like to think so.
Yeah.
We like to think so.
Great. Dr. Kim, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you the final question to the panel, and then we'll move on, as I know we're running on time. So as you've been working on the development and implementation of the Green Shipping Corridor between the U.S. and Korea, what has been the biggest challenge of making this a reality?
Thank you. Actually, I think the key to building the Green Shipping Corridor is the financial support. It's a given that economic cost of use alternative fuel at sea is going to be higher, and I think key is how do we address that given. I think it's important that we partners with government, the finance sector, and industry to own these issues. The development of zero emission equipment of infrastructure is also very necessary, especially for given green ships and green ports. In addition to this, I think we need a partner to the pure value chains, including the production of and supply of carbon neutral alternative fuels.
Sorry, I got distracted for a minute. But yeah, as I hear, it's the importance of the partnerships between across the supply chain, not just on the shipping side, but also then on the ports, on the port authority side. Excellent. Great. Well, we've come to almost time, so I see my boss is around the corner. So we'll have to skip questions from the public. But please, can you please give a round of applause and welcome to my boss, Deputy Special Envoy for Climate, Sue Binias, for closing remarks.
Oh, on stage, okay?
Oh, okay. And can the speakers go back to your seats, please? Thanks. Your turn, Sue.
Hello, is this on? Sorry. Okay, great. I didn't hear row because I didn't have earphones, so I wasn't sure it was my turn. Hello, everybody. Sorry to be late. I was at the Our Ocean Conference event, so it was related to the water. So I think Georg already mentioned something about the launch of the Green Shipping Challenge on the margins of COP27. Between the Prime Minister of Norway and Secretary Kerry. It was very COP relevant, but it was actually inspired by the COP in Glasgow the year before. So the COP has really played quite an important role in the development of the Green Shipping Challenge. In Glasgow, 2 declarations were kind of launched. I think one by the UK, maybe both by the UK. One was the Clydebank Declaration on green shipping corridors in particular, and the other one was the Declaration on Zero Emission Shipping. So what the US idea, along with Norway, was to figure out how to pull these 2 things together and create a new kind of initiative. And the 4 things that we looked at, kind of in terms of factors, were, why are we doing this? Who is doing it? What are they doing it? And what are they doing and when? And basically we took inspiration from the Zero Emission Shipping Declaration to figure out the why. So we basically said we want to do something that helps put the shipping sector on a path to 1.5 degrees. The when was this decade, because everybody had been talking about the importance or like this critical or decisive decade. The who, we wanted to include all major actors in the shipping value chain, so not just national governments, but sort of everybody. And then the what was to focus on concrete actions and commitments. And you put all of that together, and that became the Green Shipping Challenge. At that time, even though it was just a couple years ago, a lot of things had not yet happened. It's hard to even imagine that. But the IMO had not yet revised its initial GHG strategy. If you go back and look at that initial strategy, you'll see that it was not at all aligned with the Paris goals. I think it had something like a 50% reduction by 2050 and other features that were not at all sort of consistent or consonant with the Paris Agreement goals. The shipping sector was always referred to as a hard-to-abate sector, and nobody was imagining the technological feasibility of getting the sector on a path towards a zero-emission future. And just a few years later, today, we have a revised IMO strategy that I think we would argue at least keeps 1.5 degrees within reach. We have over 80 Green Shipping Challenge announcements across the whole value chain. And the shipping sector has basically put itself at the forefront of climate action. And if you want to get a couple more numbers, through the Green Shipping Challenge, multiple ship owners have announced at least 65 new orders for the next generation of vessels, including some that will be methanol and or ammonia ready. We've gotten public-private commitments of more than $2 billion to support various forms of shipping decarbonization, and there's been the launch of 18 new green shipping corridors. In the US, in particular, as opposed to global action, we've put in place a number of incentives and launched several new initiatives. Our agencies have invested over $25 billion to electrify ports and waterways, create new hydrogen hubs, decarbonize port operations, and build out new zero-emission port technologies. And later this week, we expect to publish the first, quote, U.S. maritime decarbonization plan, end quote, which is one of the commitments that we made during a Green Shipping Challenge event. So there's obviously more work to do, but we appreciate the participation of everyone involved in this process, including, all of you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Well, with that, we are closing the event. The event is over. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And thank you for the panelists and Sue. Thank you. And Georg.